Picture a dinner party. Someone walks in, a designer watch catching the light, casually mentioning a luxury car parked outside and a recent international trip. Everyone quietly assumes this is the wealthiest person in the room. Across the table sits someone else. Unremarkable car, standard watch. They mention only when asked directly that they could take a year off work right now if they needed to. Nobody at that table assumes the second person is wealthy. According to financial research, that assumption is wrong more often than most people would ever guess. We naturally equate a high salary and visible consumption with financial security, assuming that what a person spends reflects what they actually have. This graph charts out the reality of American earners according to a Goldman Sachs analysis. 41% of people earning between $300,000 and $500,000 a year report living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of those earning over $500,000 annually report the exact same thing. Nearly half of America's highest earners are one missed paycheck away from financial strain. Meanwhile, a meaningful share of America's actual millionaires, measured by net worth rather than income, are school teachers, mid-level managers, electricians, and small business owners, people whose annual income never approached six figures, but who quietly accumulated seven-figure balance sheets through decades of disciplined behavior. This points to a single, distinct mathematical reality. Income is what flows into your life. Wealth is what stays. A salary, no matter how large, requires continuous, active labor. Stop showing up to work, and the income stops immediately, regardless of how impressive the paycheck used to be. This area chart illustrates a completely different approach. It plots the compounding math of investing just $500 a month into a low-cost, diversified index fund. Assuming a historical average annual return of roughly 10% before inflation, that consistent investment grows over a 40-year trajectory to roughly $1.5 million by age 65. The overwhelming majority of that final total comes not from the money actually contributed, but from decades of returns compounding on top of previous returns. That growth generates further growth without a single additional hour of labor required to produce it. One person has built an automated machine, the other is still running on a treadmill. But an engine needs protection from outside shocks. Federal Reserve survey data repeatedly shows that a significant share of American adults would struggle to cover an unexpected expense of $400 without borrowing money or selling something. The person with quiet wealth maintains a dedicated emergency fund, typically held in a high-yield savings account so it remains fully liquid and accessible. It is specifically sized to cover 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses. When a surprise bill arrives, they pay it, transfer the money, and move on. Because that unglamorous cushion of accessible cash exists underneath their everyday financial life, it quietly absorbs the shock, turning a life-altering financial catastrophe into a forgettable errand. The most visually deceptive indicator of genuine wealth sits parked in nearly every driveway in America. Run the actual math on a new mid-range SUV. Once taxes, interest, and modern 6 to 7 year loan terms are factored in, it frequently produces a monthly payment of $800 to $1,000. This split-screen comparison reveals the opportunity cost hiding inside that car payment. On one side, an $800 monthly payment goes straight into a rapidly depreciating vehicle. On the other side, that exact same monthly amount invested in a diversified index fund compounds to somewhere around $150,000 over a single decade. People with genuine wealth consistently drive reliable, several-years-old vehicles, frequently paid for entirely in cash. They make a deliberate choice to minimize ongoing financial drag rather than trying to communicate their status to people in a parking lot. Then there is the credit card trap. Federal Reserve data tracks average industry credit card rates well above 20% annually. Carrying a $5,000 balance and making only minimum payments can take well over a decade to fully pay off, with total interest easily exceeding the original amount borrowed. The quietly wealthy use those exact same credit cards, often leaning heavily into the points and cashback rewards. But they follow one unbroken mathematical rule. The full statement balance gets paid off completely to zero every single billing cycle, without exception. By ruthlessly eliminating high-interest debt and depreciating liabilities, they construct a protective barrier around their compounding investments. The math works for them, rather than invisibly working against them. The final sign of wealth requires overriding a deeply wired human instinct. Behavioral economists call it social comparison spending, the well-established tendency for spending decisions to be shaped by the visible habits of neighbors, coworkers, and friends. This comparison pressure pushes high earners into larger homes, upgraded vehicles, and expensive vacations that their actual financial position cannot comfortably support, purely to maintain parity with their social circle. The wealthy person exhibits a strikingly different reaction. They decline the upgraded group vacation and skip the neighborhood home renovation project without visible anxiety. They are entirely unbothered by what those choices might signal about their financial position. This radical comfort with saying no is the direct psychological output of the compounding investments, the boring car, the disciplined credit card habit, and the emergency cash cushion. External comparison loses its emotional grip because their sense of security is grounded in tangible assets. The true purpose of quiet, disciplined wealth is not a large bank account. By separating what flows in from what stays, they purchase something almost nobody with a large salary alone ever manages to fully reclaim: lasting psychological independence and structural sovereignty. That quiet, unshakable demeanor we saw in the calmest person in the room during part 1 doesn't come from the items they buy. It comes from the single, unremovable resource they successfully reclaim: time itself. Performed wealth is spent on things designed to be seen: the watch, the car, the vacation photos, as a way of communicating status outward. Quiet wealth is spent invisibly. It is allocated towards the systematic removal of friction, dread, and mandatory presence from daily life. This animated diagram tracks life satisfaction across multiple income brackets. Notice the distinct upward spike in reported well-being for people engaging in time-purchasing behavior. Right next to it is a completely flat line representing those who purchase material objects. Behavioral scientists consistently find that buying back your own hours yields measurably higher life satisfaction than buying more possessions. In practice, this looks like paying a premium for a flight that lands at a reasonable hour to avoid arriving exhausted. It's hiring a cleaning service to reinvest those hours into work that actually matters, or family, or rest. Mostly, it's building enough financial margin to walk away from a toxic job without a 6-month countdown clock of panic attached to the decision. True financial peace requires the structural capacity to declare your time entirely unavailable for sale, immediately, without needing to negotiate that boundary with anyone else. The 7th sign of genuine wealth operates entirely in the background. A fixed percentage of every paycheck is automatically diverted directly into an investment or savings account before a single dollar ever reaches a checking account. Behavioral economists have documented a predictable human flaw. Money sitting visibly in a checking account is mentally categorized as spendable. Its mere presence increases the likelihood of discretionary spending. Automating the transfer removes willpower from the equation. There is no moment of temptation to resist because the money is assigned its job, growth, compounding, and security, before the paycheck can even be evaluated as a spending decision. This side-by-side comparative chart shows the exact math playing out over a 30-year timeline. On the left, we have a modest income with a 20. Every major purchase passes through this filter. By the strictest financial definition, an asset is something that puts money into your pocket over time. This means dividend-paying stocks, a rental property generating monthly income, or ownership in a profitable business. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket over time. Depreciating vehicles, boats sitting unused for 11 months of the year, and oversized homes carrying corresponding maintenance and insurance bills fall squarely into this category. Our status-driven culture causes widespread financial confusion by marketing depreciating liabilities using the emotional language of assets. Luxury items are sold as evidence of financial success, even while they mathematically drain cash flow every single month. The quietly wealthy apply a reflexive test before making a major purchase. They ask if the item generates income and genuinely appreciates, or if it simply costs money to insure and maintain while losing value in a driveway. Applying this single filter over 20 years results in vastly different personal balance sheets between two people who earned identical lifetime incomes. One holds a collection of compounding income-generating assets. The other holds a garage full of things worth less today than the day they were bought. Popular media portrays wealth building as a chaotic sprint of dramatic stock picks, cryptocurrency windfalls, and high-leverage options trading. The documented behavior of actual millionaires contradicts this entirely. Decades of academic research have repeatedly yielded the same uncomfortable finding for the finance industry. The overwhelming majority of actively managed funds, run by highly paid professionals, fail to beat simple, low-cost index funds over a 20-year horizon once fees are factored in. Warren Buffett, arguably the most successful active investor in history, famously instructed that upon his death, the bulk of his personal estate be invested in low-cost S&P 500 index funds, advising against the exact stock-picking approach that built his own reputation. A genuine wealth portfolio looks aggressively boring by design. It relies on broad index funds spread across domestic and international markets, a sensible allocation to bonds, automatic rebalancing, and a complete lack of interest in chasing speculative dinner party trends. True financial success lacks a thrilling narrative. It relies on the unremarkable, repetitive discipline of capturing the broad market's average growth, compounding patiently over multiple decades without emotional disruption. The 10th and final sign is the master mental framework underneath all the others. People with lasting wealth measure their financial life by tracking actual net worth, not gross salary. Look at this bathtub diagram. The heavy stream is your visible salary. Retained water depends on the drain. A massive open drain of spending leaves zero wealth. Now observe a smaller faucet with a plug drain. The actual net worth steadily rises and compounds. Tracking the water level changes downstream decisions. A raise becomes an opportunity to increase the automatic investment transfer rather than a reason to inflate lifestyle. Real money relies on a quiet structural pattern of discipline, automated saving, and a firm line separating assets from liabilities. The reward for maintaining this structure is psychological sovereignty. It grants the ability to reject social pressure and unwanted obligations without a flicker of anxiety, knowing their security relies on math, not the approval of anyone else at the table. Tell us in the comments which of these 10 signs hit you the hardest. If you know someone who looked completely ordinary but turned out to be quietly, genuinely wealthy, we want to read that story. Also, if any part of this breakdown felt rushed, or if the math skipped a step somewhere, let us know. We read the comments to make these deep dives sharper and more useful with every video we release. Hit like if this breakdown changed how you viewed the people around you, subscribe if you want more deep dives like this one, and we'll see you in the next video.